Hi again, and welcome everybody to the Capgemini Intelligent Industry Stage here at Day 2 of Hannover Messe 25. Now, we have another session and another exciting panel. I'm starting to notice a bit of a trend. And this one, actually, I'm so excited about that we have some additional headphones for folks out there, so that in case you have a little trouble hearing, we have Ralph right over there, the gentleman in the gray suit. They'll hand out some headphones. In Pragya, the lovely lady in the gray dress over there, will be handing out headphones if anybody has any trouble hearing and would like to listen a little bit more. Now, a year ago at Hannover, we announced the launch of the Margo initiative. And now as we step into year 2, we'd like to highlight our journey so far, as well as some of the future prospects that we have ahead of us for 2025. So what I'll do now is I'm going to introduce this panel, and I'm going to get out of your guys' way. So we have Nicholas Russo from Capgemini, we have Carl Moberg from Avasa, Ashwani Singh from Belden, Michael Maxey from Zadata, and Bart Newborg from Rockwell. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
It's a real pleasure being on this stage 1 year after. So I guess there are 2 survivors of that era, right? Bart and myself, but I'm really pleased to welcome the 2 of you guys for this passionating session that hopefully you're going to enjoy. So just to echo on what was said by Anthony right before, right? A year ago, there was a lot of expectations because everyone was seeing 5 different logos from really 5 different companies coming together, even competitors coming together to create a new promise about really what we call the interoperability at the edge. So it's a privilege being here again today to really make some kind of a milestone step on where we are, because we had a big promise last year, really raising the expectations. But somehow there's been a huge dynamic that was created. So really the purpose of today was really to remake this milestone check 1 year after Hannover Messe. Where do we stand? A little bit, how does that work in real life? And somehow looking forward about what's coming up. So starting with you, Bart, as a really the respected, so you see that now world famous picture, right? I guess same stage a year ago. So Bart, now that you're the highly respected chairman of the Margo initiative, can you tell us a little bit what have we done over the last year?
Yeah, sure. So last year we were here to announce with the founding members of Margo the project. Where we had a strong belief in that there was a play and a space to go and look for addressing the pain points that the market was seeing with respect to interoperability of how edge applications, edge devices could be managed, deployed, could have give more choice to users. And well, where are we today? What have we reached, or what were the advancements we have seen since then? As you can see, the community clearly did expand. It was great to see that more players in the market were aligning and seeing it worth to federate around that vision that Margo has. And I would say not only the fact that we grew, I would even say way faster than we anticipated as the founding members, so that's a positive. But the growth was not only about, more companies federate around that idea, they actually started to collaborate. And what we found definitely appreciative was the fact that also the framework we proposed, doing it in an open source manner, in a very transparent manner, incentivized those new members to come and collaborate, contribute, and that we have reached so far already portions of the deliverables. We were announcing last year that we were focusing on 3 pillars, meaning yes, a specification for APIs, yes, having also a reference implementation and compliance test toolkit. Well, we are now at the stage that we have reached it through quick prototyping, a convergence around what we call a pre-draft state of our specification, and we'll be giving later a bit of outlook what we are working on in 2025. So it was really great experience seeing that happening.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So we thought as well, beyond the promise we had at that time, was really to give you a couple of perspectives about what does that mean in real. And I believe there's no better word that the experience. Okay, everyone's talking about user experience, but turning to the new joiners compared to a year ago, about somehow starting maybe with you, Ashwini, is what motivated them to somehow join the initiative? Can you please highlight that for the audience?
Of course, Nicolas. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel. And we at Belden, we are like designing, manufacturing, and even marketing the networking product solutions, connectivity solutions. And in our business, we are dealing with data. A lot of data, not only data that flows related to our network, but also the data that's the OT data coming through our network. And in terms of motivation, I think the better way, in my opinion, is to explain through the customer challenges that we face. And recently, 2 weeks ago, I was in US meeting some of our key automotive manufacturers. The first thing they kept saying, that in our digital transformation journey, the amount of data going through now has really become a bottleneck for our networks. So many sensor data, thousands of PLCs and drives and the vision sensors and all, so on and so forth. And that is too much for them, and they want only data that is needed, really required to be pushed to the network. And as networking experts, we know how to do that, right? We can make an edge application and do some kind of filtering and ingress logic there. But the challenges they have is that their ecosystem is a multi-vendor ecosystem. And our application which is based on our expertise should be running in all the different vendors, edge vendors that are there. And that's something, the promise of Margo for me, and that's one of the key motivation that has been there.
So something around the promise of overcoming the silos, right?
Exactly.
I think that's a very valid point. Max, from the data perspective,
sure.
Is that pretty much the same? Can you really give us your personal and company view on that angle?
Yeah, sure, happy to do that. So, and thank you for having me, by the way.
My pleasure.
So, really 2 reasons I think really drove our participation in Margo. We provide device management and virtualization really for edge devices. And on top of those, you can run lots of different workloads, everything from networking to Kubernetes to Avasa. And our customers demand interoperability and simplicity. And that's really the goal of Margo. So it aligns really with our customer demands and where our customers are taking us. And the combination of the companies coming together and the number of applications they can bring, I think will unlock value for enterprises all over the world. So we're very excited about the interoperability that's happening. It's very important to our customer base. And then I would say that the second reason is the open source approach. We're an open source company. Part of our product lives in the Linux Foundation Edge group. So I participate in LF Edge as well. And being this open source approach, we've seen work for these industries. So the combination of kind of customer requirements around interoperability and open source are kind of the key drivers for Zadita joining.
Thanks for the highlight. I think it's the 2 complementary views are quite interesting. I guess we should go somehow take some time to go one day through the 45 orders. Okay, but might be taking a bit more time. So just beyond, and just to switch a little bit the angle, probably turning back to you, Carl, because again, we've been talking about why to join Margo, but can you give us a little bit of the insight, because we're seeing some very nice pictures of people from all over the world coming all together. But from your perspective, how does that work from the inside? And I'm not going to ask Bart because he won't be objective, but can you give us an objective point of view there?
Yeah, for sure. So, and thanks for having me, by the way. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, the background for us is kind of similar, but a little different. So we aim for, or we have a solution more in the purely in the application management space. So we run on very heterogeneous hardware and virtualized environments, including on the data. And we are very, very focused on making sure that it's hard with terminology here, but people that care deeply for their workloads, for the applications, some people will call that application teams or OT application people. We want to make sure that they actually have the same experience in edge environments that they are used to from for example, cloud environments. So we focus heavily on the day-to-day experience of those. And we were very delighted to see that inside of Margo's scope, and this is actually quite new, otherwise it can be a very technical, very IT-centric, very detailed, very deep stack world. Inside of Margo's scope was, of course, that level, you know, the whole organizing and orchestrating and automating the application. So we were happy to see that. And to be a little more transparent and honest, I'll also say that there was a fair bit of, well, the kids call it FOMO, fear of missing out. We know there were a lot of clever, good engineering people inside of there, so we wanted to find out what are they building in there. We want to join and see if we can provide. And it's been a delight, because there's a lot of people in there from various angles, from various backgrounds. Some people are very firmly rooted in, let's call it traditional OT, but there's a lot of companies that are more from the IT side. There are operating system vendors, there are hardware people, there are other orchestrator vendors. There's now even Bart's doing the good work of bringing in application companies, focusing on the actual data stack. So that's what is increasingly exciting to us, is that it's now becoming an actual ecosystem, meaning you have several angles. And I've found it to be a delight, right? Because, well, I won't bore you guys with too much of the organization here, but we're focusing on what's called the focus groups. And that's when you get to talk to peers, that's when you get to work on items with peers, and that's when you get to progress the actual foundational work that we're doing. So we're very much enjoying it. Not saying it's easy by any means. No. There's a lot of interesting aspects to this, but it's been a delightful experience this far.
Okay, so if I would put in simple words, it's not an engineering chaos.
It's not an engineering chaos.
It's an organized chaos.
It's an organized chaos. It's chaos under Bart's guidance and leadership.
So organized chaos.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so just finishing to that a little bit, Bart, back to you, and thanks the three of you for your testimonies. And since we have a little bit of time ahead of us, somehow about, I would say, can you tell us how good future would look like?
Yeah.
No
Well,
pressure.
Yeah. Well, I think like there are a few points there to say. I believe we made great progress so far. I mean, the fact that we saw that this community really wants to like solve user pain points, and that we're not just like having that idea, share it, and address it by those that believed in this idea, that found it, and seeing now that it's way broader. It's good, but there's also a need to go and now deliver. I mean, it's normal. We make a promise. When you have a promise, you have to deliver on the promise too. And I think we are on a great way. 2025 is going to be an important year for that. 2025 is going to be an important year. We have now what I would call a critical mass that can go and expand beyond what we have reached so far. So far, pre-draft of the specification, we really want to build out and have the three pillars of our deliverables have a pre-draft version of those available, meaning it's an reference implementations that show how you can get to an implementation, and that all with an objective to be able, in 2026, allow those that want to start integrating the first versions of our specification into their commercial offerings, that they are enabled to do so. It is of course their choice, but we as a community want to ensure that the building blocks are available there. And what's also important in 2025 is that we believe strongly in verifying that those for whom we are doing it, like the users, are feeling that their pain points are addressed. And we are going to start engaging strongly with what we have called in Margo our Margo sounding board. That is a group of reference players in the market, users that are in their respective industries are a reference, and that express it to us the concerns that they're having, the pain points they're having with respect to interoperability, things that are hindering them from innovating. And that kind of sounding board, collecting their feedback, verifying that we remain on track with what we made as a promise a year ago. We felt that that's super important, and not go off in developing a solution that, hey, we believe is something that could work, but when it then hits the street, we've been figuring out, well, that seems not to be the thing that the market was expecting us to address it in that way that we wanted it. We want to do that before we actually come out with the first release. And then of course in 2026, we have promised making an iterative approach we want to continue that. And yes, we're going to go for an iterative approach, creating incremental value, not waiting for 5 years until we come out with something and do it in an incremental approach, but making sure that every increment brings value for a specific space or portion of what we are intending to address as our North Star objective. I think that's, in summary, how we want to take it, that iterative approach, doing it open, transparent. I mean, people can see today what our current state of the spec is. Soon they will be able to see what our current state is of our reference implementations. They will be able to see what the status is of our pre-draft compliance testing, and then once we go in 2026, we will always do it in a very transparent manner. We've seen that that has generated interest from people to join. We believe we are on that intersect between IT and OT, that playing in that open source approach, open specification approach, is valuable to make quick progress. And I would like to say, if people feel inspired by joining us, I would say like this is what we are definitely open to welcome. New members, new players that see that can bring value and contribute to what we're doing with their domain expertise. I think the fact that we moved to a very versatile group of members is beneficial, because each can come with their aspect and their angle of like, well, how should it move, in which direction should it move to actually deliver an end-to-end solution, and not just like a specific portion of the stack being implemented, and then figuring out, well, that doesn't really work in real world. For that, you need having a very diverse group of members to go and solve that. Make sense?
That's a great promise. So if I would just to conclude a little bit my key takeaways, I think what I really appreciate as well, being somehow a little bit of the first contributors or indirect sponsors of this, is really that we're grounded to reality. I mean, one of the fears that we expressed a year ago was, okay, are we going to really kind of a Star Wars kind of a thing, we're making a big promise, but as you were pointing out, is making sure that in a fully transparent manner, things are accessible is for me the best proof that we're, serious in what we're doing. So just to conclude, I think we still have a couple of available minutes if there are any questions in the audience. But just before that, I wanted to thank the three of you for joining, giving your testimony, and Bart for the now 2 years journey, I guess, because there was a bit of a preparation behind. So very warm thank you to the four of you.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for